This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Peter Guirguis on the show. He is the founder of SwiftPress Support, a company dedicated to creating affordable and engaging websites and apps for small businesses. We're going to talk about some of the future that is coming to our websites and our apps, including AI, which is always a big topic here on Geek Leader. We're also talking about how we can use technology to become better leaders and support our team. Anyway, with all that being said, Peter, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, John, for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you on the show. Now, if you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today and why you decided to found SwiftPress Support.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it all started when I got married back in 2010, and I live in Los Angeles, which is one of the most expensive places to live in America. And, everything was fine and dandy when we first had our first child in 2011. Her name is Bella. But when we had my second son in 2014, we found that, things were getting really expensive very quickly. And, I was working, I had an 8-to-5 job in the IT sector, and I wasn't making enough money, to be able to support my family. And so I was trying to kind of have a side hustle to try to make ends meet. And I tried different things, I tried to sell some stuff online. And, I built a website, for like 4 months, working on it, released it. And that first one, trying to sell, kind of like productivity products, or kind of like small educational, like pamphlets and stuff like that online, turned out to be a big, huge failure after 4 months, and then started doing some other things as well. And nothing really worked until one of my friends who owned a marketing company knew that I was good at building websites and said, hey, do you want to start building websites for my marketing agency? And I said, sure, why not? And he started paying me for them. And that's how my business started. And it took off. And now we build websites and apps for small business owners that don't break the bank.
Awesome. I think that's a really cool way you turned your side hustle into, a business. And, and a lot of people have done that in the past. And I'm a huge fan of side hustles. I have, obviously this podcast is one of my own. But I encourage my employees to always do them as well. And I teach part-time at Winthrop as one of my side hustles. And I encourage my students to do that as well, because it's a great way to learn as well as build something that's sustainable for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that now we're just living in that time where it's hard for just one person just to have like one job, and just to make ends meet, and just with inflation and all the increasing costs of just life. So I'm finding that more and more people are having, either two jobs of some sort, or like a job and a side hustle, a job and a business of some sort. There's just all sorts of stuff. I think that's just the kind of time that we're living in right now.
Yeah. And, you mentioned, having a child kind of motivated you to get out there. Do you find that that family presence and being able to support and provide for your family is a good motivation for people to start work like this?
100%. It's just a very real life. And when you're faced with life's demands like that, and you're just like, whoa, hey, if I'm not making some kind of side income, literally it affects my family, it affects their future, it affects, like the kind of, what can I provide for them? So it's very motivating. And I would definitely say it really was hugely motivating for me, because, if I had to be at work like at 8:30 or something, I would start waking up, like at 4 o'clock in the morning, just to start working on my side hustle and squeeze in those few hours before the day, because I didn't want it to really affect my family, like after I finish my job. So I can't think of anything else that would really motivate you in such a big way, like family, especially when you need to provide for them.
Yeah, I can think back to before my daughter was born. I started playing around with iPhone apps because I was a manager of a web and mobile team, and our CIO came to me and it's like, we're going to start doing mobile apps. You're going to be, I was just doing web at the time. He's like, we're going to start doing mobile apps. This is in 2010.
early 2010. He's like, you're gonna be doing the mobile development as well. So, just amp your team up, get ready for it. So I thought, well, best way to learn this is to do one on my own. So I started building apps on my own. And I remember my first iOS app got accepted by the Apple App Store the same day my daughter was born.
Oh, wow.
Which is one of those things that kind of motivated me to do this side hustle of building apps at the same time.
Yeah, it sounds like it was very providential for you, because it's like, hey, you know what? Just at that right time, it was opening. And you know what? I mean, apps in 2010 completely different than now. And back in the day, do you remember how astronomical it used to be? Like to build an app, it was like so expensive, and only for the few companies that could really afford developing their own app. But now everybody and their mom could have an app probably.
Yeah, no, I can think back. So back then, it was like I put an app out there, and I didn't even have ads on it. It was a free app. It was just for me to learn. It was a little stupid game, and then it blew up. And it was one of those things where like, I need to find a way to monetize this. Yeah, put some ads on there.
Exactly. Oh, guys, yeah, I'm glad that you have that entrepreneurial mindset because you saw an opportunity, you were able to seize it. So hopefully it worked out for you.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. Well, one of the things that was really exciting about talking to you, when it comes to, website and supporting, a lot of us today are using WordPress and we're using other tools, to build our websites. How is it that we can kind of stay on top of all the changes that are out there with AI and integrating things to our website? Because I've had so many people, especially like other people in the business say, how can I use AI? How can AI help me? I hear about ChatGPT on the news, but how do I use it? What can we do? What are you telling your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so many different ways that you can use AI at the moment. And I think one of the best ways that I really recommend to use AI, especially for our audience, is to really use it and reply to your emails. Because just think about the enormous amount of emails that you're getting every single day, whether it's from bosses, whether it's from friends, family, whether it's from coworkers, you name it, you're getting it. Everybody's getting an insane amount. And man, there's some really amazing AI tools out there that really, really do well when it comes to replying to emails. So what would, a lot of times for me, instead of me just going through my inbox and, going through every single one and having to reply to it, and it just takes me such a long time to create a reply, I can just create a prompt in an AI tool, and then it would create, the reply for me in just seconds, and multiply that by 50 emails a day, 60 emails a day, or however many emails you get that you actually have to respond to. Then, that saves you hours, literally hours every single week, and you get your time back. So I highly recommend that. So everybody takes a look into some AI tools. Can I talk about, some of the AI tools that I recommend for replying to emails?
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, also walk me through that workflow. What is that process like? Do you copy and paste, or how does that work?
Yeah, for sure. So I've probably tried about 4 or 5 different AI tools, and the ones that I've tried, and a lot of them are paid, but there's something small and negligible. It's not that big of a deal, and some of them are free. So I have Google Gemini, I have Microsoft Copilot, and I have one called AI Cider or Cider AI, and I have another one called Right Sonic, and then the last one's called Superhuman. And all these different tools kind of work in different ways. And believe it or not, some of the ones that aren't as effective right now in emails are out of some of the big names that I found, and that's going to be Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini. They still actually need quite some bit of work to catch up to where some of the other third-party tools are at the moment. And the problem that I found with Google Gemini and using it on top of Gmail or Microsoft Copilot and using it on top of your Outlook is that it's very generic. So when you're creating your prompts and you're applying, it doesn't sound like you. It sounds basically kind of like AI. It sounds like a robot. It sounds very formal. And here in America, we don't talk like that. We're very casual, very quick, to the point, direct. We're not using this like big lingo. So in those times, I feel like Google Gemini and Microsoft Copilot still have some tweaking to do, and how they create their prompts to help people reply back. And then the most effective one that I absolutely love, that saves me so much time, is a tool called Superhuman. And basically, it's an email app that connects to your Gmail or Google Workspace, and also to your Outlook or Microsoft 365. And that one, it basically goes in and it scans all of your emails. It learns how you write. And so then after that, every single time you cause it to or teach it to reply to one of your emails, it writes in your own tone of voice, and it sounds incredible. I mean, it really nails it right on the head. I haven't seen any tool that does it as good as them. And it's just so fast in replying back to those emails. And one additional thing that I love about this tool, Superhuman, is, have you ever had one of those email threads that has 10 people on it and everybody's chiming in with their thoughts and their feedback? Yeah. And by the time it gets back to you, you're reading it, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go through this whole email thread. Well, this tool that I'm telling you about called Superhuman, what they'll do is that they have this summarize functionality where they'll just give you bullet points of what every single said in every single one of their replies. So you can just go back and read that little summary and go through it, and boom, you're caught up on everybody's email without having to go through that entire email thread, saving you so much time.
No, I think that's great because, there's so many times where you'll come in on Monday and have a thread of emails that, 15 people have replied to that you have to kind of go through and figure out, hey, where is my input needed and what has already been answered and what hasn't been answered. So I'm guessing what Superhuman is doing is when it scans your email, it's building its own large language model out of your voice.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They're trained. So when you first sign up for their account, their service, the first thing they do is that you turn on AI, and then it goes and it learns who you are, and basically it even learns about you, your family, what's your role, what's your your signature, all these different things about you, including your tone of voice. And then it basically teaches the AI how to write in your own tone of voice. So then whenever you're replying to anything, it always replies back in your tone. So it always sounds like you. And that saves you so much time, because if you're using these generic tools like Microsoft Copilot or Google Gemini or anything else that is just trained to sound like AI, then the problem is that after the AI email is generated, you have to go back and tweak it and change it to words that you normally would use. And that basically takes up more of your time. So that's why I'm like, you know what, you really need to use a tool that is trained to sound like you instead of these generic business tools that are out there.
Yeah, I have to say, I've used Microsoft Copilot and Gemini quite a bit, and both of them, it's always have to go back and I would never say that word and change those words out.
Yes, exactly. And that's my point. I'm like, those tools, it's funny because they're two of the biggest players in the field, and yet, the smaller third-party companies are able to be better at this very incredible and very important thing when it comes to emails. And I think the reason why that is because sometimes the smaller companies are more nimble, so they're able to pivot, as opposed to the bigger companies where they're a little bit more slower than some of the smaller companies out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know, one of the things I've seen with Copilot is it'll put an email and it'll always say cordially yours. I'm like, I've never said. I just end it. I don't say anything.
Exactly. Like, who in the world says cordially yours, or some of the.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, it's funny. I think a lot of times some of those large language models are based on more formal countries. Like here in the States, we're very informal and direct, right? But then there's more formal cultures, maybe like the UK or the Indian culture, and they're more indirect. And so it's just sometimes it needs to also consider hey, where are you at and kind of what culture are you in before you actually create a response.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that we do have to focus on is cultural awareness, and also who you're responding to, because I'm going to respond to somebody that reports to me differently than I would somebody that I report to, So I think that hierarchy is also important.
Yeah, when you're using any of those tools, John, are you ever saying hey, create a draft reply to this person, and this person is my employee, as opposed to, hey, this is a person who's my peer, or trying to define those relationships?
No, I'm not, but that's a good idea. That's something I should do. I'll say stuff I'll have it, craft a reply or a new message or something, doing something, and then I'll go back and say, now make that sound happier. But I haven't thought about making it sound to my boss.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Haven't had to do that yet. It's because I do use Superhuman so much, and it is spot on the first time around. Mm-hmm. But if somebody is using some of those other tools where you have to be a little bit more specific, with some of the things that could be something that you might want to experiment with.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of those things we do have to really think about, especially when you are trying to make sure that you're doing things the right way and not overstepping those cultural norms and boundaries that could be within your business side. One of the things I do have another question about when it comes to AI, how can we use that maybe to help us find the right customers? If we are starting a side hustle, we want to get into a business where we do something. How do we use AI tools that are out there today to find that stuff and increase some of our conversions?
Yeah, what a great question, John. I think this is super important because back in the day before AI, I think one of the problems that you had was was defining your ideal customer avatar, which was right. So all about that. You have to figure out okay, who's your ideal customer? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? And you're always trying to enter the conversations that are being created in their mind. And so one of the things that you would have to do, for example, or that would be recommended, was for you to go and find similar products or services that are being out there. Let's say you're offering a product, you would go on Amazon, for example, go read the reviews, and it would be very tedious because you would have to go through 5-star reviews, 4-star reviews, 3-star reviews, 2 and 1. And you'd have to kind of get the sentiment, hey, what are the problems? What are the issues? Because if your product, is similar to something that's being sold on Amazon. Or you would do the same thing for Reddit. You would want to go on Reddit and go find a Reddit that, relates to your topic. And that you would have to go sit there and, rhyme through all the different comments before you're able to really understand what's going on with your ideal audience. And there's different ways to do that. But now you don't need to do that when it comes to your ideal customer avatar using AI. You could just, say, hey, here's my product. This is what I offer. Here's my service. We build websites, we build apps, or whatever it is that you're doing. And then after that, you just tell AI, hey, build me a customer avatar based on this. And man, you take a look at what it comes back with. I'm like, wow, this is pretty impressive. This is pretty spot on, and just with a few minor tweaks. So I would say definitely using AI to find out what is your ideal customer avatar is a great way to be able to begin experimenting with it. And I think one of the most important things when you're doing that is I think people forget that, hey, it's called ChatGPT and all these LLMs models for a reason, is because you're meant to have a conversation with them. It's not just hey, one prompt that you put at the beginning of your session and boom, you're done, you get the perfect output. A lot of times you have to have a conversation back and forth with it so that you can get these gold nuggets out of AI. And especially, I think with ChatGPT just last week, they released a model where they update, it memorizes or has a memory in it. And that wasn't the case before. So now across all of your chats in ChatGPT, it's able to memorize its previous responses, which makes it so much more powerful.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. I think I don't think I've ever put in a prompt and the very first response was perfect. Yeah, it's always you have to go back and say, now clarify this or update this or now do it like this, and have that conversation with it to get that right answer. And go back to your avatar thing. I think understanding who your customer is a super important. And when I started this podcast, I was listening to all these other, like Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, and Entrepreneur on Fire. These other people that said, how you build your avatar. And I cheated, and I just said my avatar is me. I want to have a podcast that I would listen to. Podcast for people like me that are in my role that have exactly what I like. That's what it did, and it kind of worked out. But that's obviously not the case if you're providing the service to other people.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I love also Pat Flynn and Entrepreneurs on Fire, because you're right. The understanding who your customer is and what keeps them up at night. What are their struggles. And so you whenever you're trying to create a landing page or you're trying to solve a business problem for them, you have to speak their language, and you have to show that you understand them. And the thing is that we do business with people that that know us, like us, and trust us. And the best way to do that is to show empathy towards your ideal customer, and to show that you understand them. And I think to show that you've also been able to solve the problem that they're looking for you to solve is going to be really, really crucial. So I can't think of any better tool than AI to help you with building that profile.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And let's talk a little bit about empathy, if you don't mind, because that's one of the things that a lot of us folks in tech kind of struggle with, is trying to put ourselves in other people's shoe. What are some ways that you found to help build empathy when you're relating either to a customer or to an employee or something like that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's such an amazing book that I love about this, and it is it's about negotiations and strategies. I'm trying to remember the name, but if I say it, I bet anything you have heard of it. It'll come to me in just a second. But basically, in this book that I had read, it's never
Split the Difference. Yeah, I've read that book.
Oh my gosh, I think I've read it 3 times. I've listened to it on audio. So, what did you think of the book?
I thought it was great. I used it. So when I was getting the job I'm in now, I thought I'm going to read a book about negotiation so I can negotiate my salary. That was the whole premise behind it. But it was deeper than that. It was about coming up with win-wins and not just a win-loss scenario.
Exactly. That's it. And that's what I loved about the book. So you think it's a book about negotiations, but exactly like what you said, it's so much more. And it teaches you tactical empathy. And tactical empathy,
that's the word that I like. Yes.
That's it.
I remember that phrase.
Tactical empathy. And basically, that's amongst other things too. You also learn about the accusation audit. I don't know if you remember that as well. But since we're talking about empathy here, the cool thing about the empathy is that, the author teaches you how to give tactical empathy. And he says, hey, you know what? Whenever somebody, says something to you, you want to basically summarize it by saying, hey, it sounds like, or it feels like, and then fill in the blank, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say, for example, I come to you and I'm, telling you, oh my gosh, John, I just had my second child, and man, expenses are really ranking up, and I don't know, because I need to get a second job. What am I going to do? So then you want to show tactical empathy to me. You would say, oh, Pete, I totally feel you. It sounds like, you're kind of worried about, providing for your family and, making ends meet. And then that caused me to say, yeah, that's right. So anytime that you are able to say, hey, it sounds like, it feels like, and it causes for the other person to say, that's right. Mm-hmm. That's how you know that you're on the right track and that you're able to offer empathy to the other person that you're speaking with. And you're absolutely correct that as IT people, as tech people in the industry, we're not taught how to empathize with people. And that is something that actually other people in our industry actually give us feedback on as something that we need to work on. So, from corporate leadership, to CEOs, CIOs, to middle management, that always think that they have this complaint about tech people, that they lack sometimes the empathy or the understanding, or that they talk over their heads because they're just talking the geek talk that, people don't really understand, nor do they really care about. They just want to have their problem or issue fixed. And so a great way around that is to have empathy towards, your coworkers, your customers, the people that you support. And when you do, that's the quickest way, one, for a promotion. And number two is for people to sing your praises and to talk about how good you are, which can either brings in new business, new promotions, whatever it is, because that's definitely something that people want to have. And it's definitely something that severely is lacking in our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book that I was recently reading called The 5 Keys to Mindful Communication. And in there, it used the words that you talked about, like feeling. Like, I feel like, and to try to transform your communication from being just a rigid, this is what I heard, to this is how it made me feel that I heard this. And that's a way to kind of develop that empathy for others and let them know that, you're relating to their emotional state more than just, a logical state.
Yes, and I think you picked up on something really important here too, John, and that is, there's different types of personalities, and there's these different personality tests that you can take. One of the ones that I really like is the DISC model, DISC. So you're familiar with that. So so the people, so the DISC, there's like these four different personalities. The dominant ones, or the two of them are basically going to be thinkers, and two of them are going to be kind of like feelers. So thinkers are going to tend to use more language that say, hey, I think. And then feelers are going to say more things like, hey, I feel. So I think it's really important that also, even if you're a thinker, that you also still communicate to the feelers, because everybody has emotions. Even the very logical people that are out there and that are thinkers, they still have emotions that need to be addressed. So I think that having, empathy and having high emotional IQ is something that's relevant to everybody, no matter what industry they're in and no matter their personality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've kind of got off a different subject than where we started, but have you ever used AI tools to kind of help you with some of these leadership and empathy type things that you have to deal with, relating to customers or employees?
Yes, I have. One of the things that I love to do is just to maybe use AI kind of like as a person, like an advisor, and I'll give them a scenario like, hey, I'm in this situation where I'm talking to a customer and they're not happy with something in particular. What would be the best way to communicate to them that you need to give them this solution, and keep in mind the different outcomes. And then, it spits out, like, hey, you know what? Okay, here's the situation and here's the different things. And be careful of doing this and, be sure to do that. And it gives you like all these different scenarios. And then just like you said earlier, that, for you to have a conversation with AI, you can give more prompts to get more stuff out of it. And I think it's really helpful in situations. And sometimes also I've used AI to have like really crucial crucial conversations with my employees, who I knew that I had to give them some feedback that wasn't that great about their performance. And man, I was worried, I'm like, man, this person, when I talk to her, she's not going to have a good reaction. How am I going to be able to address this issue with her? And I could put that through AI and it can give me some ideas and some thoughts. And yeah, it's given me some great ideas about, how to navigate those kind of murky waters. So I would say, yes, it can be very helpful to use AI in those kind of situations.
That's a great idea. I need to maybe look into that a little more. I know I've used it to help me write a performance review where I've written like the bulk of it and said like, make this sound a little nicer, a little cleaner, a little easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think using it for maybe just testing out like how how this conversation is going to go, because we all have to have those difficult conversations. And, if you're like me, you stress out over, hours beforehand and, pulling the trigger is kind of hard. So I think it gives you a practice, round.
Yes, absolutely. I would say one thing too about this situation, since we're talking about it, is like one of the worst things you could do is to ignore it. And we sometimes hear about, some leaders that unfortunately they had to have crucial conversations or critical conversations that are hard to have. And because they've ignored it or they took a long time to address it, things in their company or their business went down, and there's even a situation with Netflix, I think, where they were navigating some racial issues by one of their leaders, and their CEO didn't address it with that person who had made some racial remarks. And, it kept on happening, for a while before he finally had to let go of that leader. And by then there was already a lot of damage and there was a lot of ill will by the employees. This is a kind of a famous story of Netflix. Uh-huh. And so it just shows to happen that like, hey, the longer that you wait to have those crucial conversations, sometimes there could be some serious consequences. So you're better off, hey, being quick to have them, but also at the same time being thoughtful about how to have them and maybe using even AI just to run some scenarios and get some feedback and some advice. And also don't forget that you could use some humans too, talk to a friend, a trusted advisor that could also help you out and maybe speak into that and give you some encouragement.
No, I love that. Yeah, definitely use humans too. But you're right. Yeah. I mean, I've been at a company before where there's been an issue where someone said something inappropriately in a meeting and, trying to make a joke or something like that. I didn't mean anything by it, but it offended some people. And, I remember waiting for a response from someone to apologize, and, a week went by and another week went by. And then finally you get something that's like, well, dude, by now it's too late. Now you're bringing it back up after, it's already over with. So I think that prompt action is really important.
100%. You're exactly right about that. The thing is like your timing is also of the essence. So a lot of times, we don't want to be put in get out of our comfort zone because we're afraid. But I think sometimes, especially when you're a leader and people are looking to you, that it's really important to also say the right thing and also have the correct timing. And those go well together to hopefully give you good output and make you into an effective leader that people respect and they follow you and they enjoy your leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're 100% right with that. Going back to the AI topic, one of the questions that I'm curious about, because I use WordPress for geekleader.com's website and my personal site for that matter. When it comes to some of the tools that are out there, that what kind of advancements are coming or are already here that we should be looking at when it comes to popular plugins or securing your site and making sure that we're keeping security up to date and we're having all the different things. What do you consider to be the best practices for building and maintaining a WordPress site?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this question too, John, because it's definitely up my alley, because all of our clients' websites that we build are also on WordPress. Mm-hmm. And WordPress is the most popular website building platform at the moment. There's about 2 billion websites online, and about 845 million of them are built using WordPress.
Wow.
So it comes out to about 42% market share. And like the next biggest one is it doesn't even come close, between Shopify and Webflow and all these other smaller tools. They're way much smaller market share. So one of the things that I really recommend, I recommend two things when it comes to WordPress. Number one is that I really recommend using like a framework as your theme, instead of some of these smaller themes that you get from like Theme Forest, or some of the other places. And the two big ones that are out there are going to be Elementor and Divi, for WordPress. And between those two, and they both have AI built into them to help you, create either the text for the page, to help you create the images for your website. So they're phenomenal tools. And the reason why I recommend one of these two is because when it comes time to redesign your website, you want to continue to use these tools down the road and not to change themes. Whenever you change themes and you have to, switch themes, oh my gosh, it's a nightmare. And the amount of extra work that you have to do because you're changing themes is going to be like up the wazoo, because you have to consider oh my gosh, this one has a portfolio feature, this one doesn't. And now I have to take my portfolios from one theme to another, or there's this one feature in this theme that's not available in that one. It's just really bad. The best thing that you could do is to go with the big brands, the big names in this sphere that have the employees to be able to continue to iterate and innovate. And those are right now the Elementor theme and framework. I mean, you could also use Elementor just as a plugin by itself, and same thing with Divi with their theme and their plugin. But I tend to also recommend their themes and just to stick with one of those two themes, and that's going to be extremely helpful with AI. But I want to maybe stop for a moment, maybe get some feedback from you about this question before we talk about a little bit more about security, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think when it comes into using a theme, is picking one that is going to be supported long term, like with a larger company, like you're saying, and learn that theme, learn everything about it, so that when you do want to update, redesign, anything like that, you're not switching themes, you're just redesigning out of the same framework that you built in before. And yeah, I think that's absolutely important and a great way of going through that process. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and do you use one of those two by any chance?
I don't.
Okay, sounds good. So maybe for your next project then.
I'll tell you what I do use and just say, let me log in, and I don't mind sharing it, but I don't remember off the top of my head. So I have to.
Oh, gotcha. You got to share what you use for a Geek Leader?
Yeah. I don't mind sharing, but I need to go in and check, because I never remember what I use. I actually purchased it from ThemeForest, but it's one of the larger ones.
Oh, good. If it's one of the larger ones from ThemeForest, that's
B-Theme. B-Theme is what I use.
They're huge, yeah. So B-Theme is going to be like one of the top 5 best-selling themes, and that's fine as well, as long as you're going to be using, B-Theme for the next one. Unless you don't mind, moving to a new theme after you use the new one with the next redesign, then you're going to have to think about, okay, if I'm going to move away from B-Theme. But it just depends on if you like the B-Theme and you're happy with their features, then you could always use them in the future, because they are a big player in the field as well.
Yeah. I kind of knew that I wanted somebody that would be around, because I've used free themes before, and then all of a sudden you get an alert that they're not supported on your next version of WordPress, and you're like, oh crap, now what?
Yeah. And does the B-Theme offer AI tools in their theme?
They might. with some of the, I've never used them if they do. So like I created a child theme underneath my B theme and put everything in there and kind of build off that. So I went back to using the Gutenberg editor and just use the basic stuff.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, that sounds cool. So yeah, so I think with those tools, I know with Elementor and Divi, that they have, basically some kind of AI in them, and you can basically write a prompt and say, actually in both of them, you can actually say like, hey, this is my business. Like, hey, please create a homepage for me for my client's website. He owns a bakery shop. He sells pastries and, cakes. And so create, a homepage for me using the best practices. And you write a little bit more about it. And then boom, it will go out there, create the font, the headings, the H1s, H2s, the paragraph text. It'll create images for you that are created by AI and everything. And it's like, hey, you know what? Something that used to literally take you a few hours to put together now is created by 5 minutes. And it's not going to be perfect, but it definitely, cuts the time tremendously, and you can just tweak what it gives you.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things. So what do you think are the best practices when it comes to updating and maintaining security on your site?
Yeah, this is so important, John. And I think that you recognize how important it is, which is why you're asking. Mm-hmm. And I think that the number one vulnerability, or the number way where you're able to get hacked, or you get malware, or you get viruses on your website, is by not updating your plugins. And so I think that even before, some of the companies, the best practices that was like, oh, we're going to update our plugins once a week on our website. But I think that things are getting worse at the moment online, where even if you're waiting once a week to get it done, like, hey, we're going to do it every Thursday, or we're going to do it every Wednesday once a week, it still might keep you exposed. And that's because I've known some sites actually where, they're on a weekly schedule of updating their plugins and, patching those vulnerabilities, but they still got hacked because in between their cycle, somebody was able to get in and find a vulnerability, and they were able to take advantage of it, and they did get hacked. So if there's a way where you're able to, kind of almost scan for those updates daily, mm-hmm. I think you're better off. There is a feature baked inside of WordPress for most of the plugins where you can say, hey, enable auto updates, and basically they'll update, I think, once a day. The problem with that is that depending on the complexity of your website, so different plugins sometimes don't play well with each other because, they're developed by third-party tools. So if you have the enable auto updates, sometimes it can break your site. So that's a problem. However, there are some web hosts, that offer auto updates, but what they'll do is that it's kind of like an AI feature or a smart feature where they'll update the plugins for you, and then after that, test your before and after state of your website, and they'll compare and contrast it. And if they see that any of the after states are broken as compared to the before the plugin updates, they'll revert your site automatically and send you an email and say, hey, we tried to update these plugins, it broke your site. We just wanted to let you know these plugins have not been updated, but you need to address these issues. And I find that is kind of a very nice happy medium to be able to get the automatic updates on a very quick schedule, mm-hmm. and to be able to keep them updated, and to maintain security at a much, faster, high-paced level. And the web host that I use that does that is called Cloudways, and I'm really happy with them.
Cloudways. Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that because I kind of have a workaround for mine, just to be honest. And so I have like a test site that I've set up that has automatic updates on it already. And then I set up a monitor to automatically ping that website every so often, like, every couple of hours. Because, your website has to have traffic on it in order to generate those auto updates. Yeah. So that'll hit traffic to that test website, and then that'll automatically download the updates. And I get an email notification that automatic updates were completed, so that I can go in and see, did it break it? And if not, then I apply those updates. And
that's brilliant. I love that idea. I think definitely any of our audience listeners that are listening right now, and what John just shared, you should definitely implement that if you have the time to be able to do it. For sure.
Kind of a poor man's auto update, right?
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, as long, it takes up a little bit more of your time because you got to check on it, but it's still amazing. And there's probably even some parts that maybe you could automate, maybe using Zapier.com or Make or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe there could, if I think about it, I could probably think about maybe something, to help to automate that and to reduce the amount of time. But yes, absolutely. I think that is a great idea, and definitely people should keep your plan also in mind as one of their options if they want to.
Yeah, awesome. Real quick, I've had a great time geeking out with you on both the leadership aspects and the web tech that we've been talking about. Tell me a little bit about what services you offer and how can people maybe find those services or connect with you online if they're interested.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, John. So for me, I'm the founder of SwiftPress Support, and we build websites and apps for small business owners that don't break the bank. And so a lot of times, if there's somebody that is interested in starting a side hustle and, they don't want to spend the time kind of, building out their own website, they don't know what to put on it or, how to do all that stuff for them. We could do that because, when you hire us, you're not just getting a website, you're getting a whole web team to help you and to give you ongoing support and to, deploy new pages, to do new website designs for you and help you out all at an affordable price. So I think it's very helpful for, those people to leverage their time so that they could, stay in their zone of genius and to stay in their lane doing what they do best. And then to hopefully leave the website part and the apps part, if they need an app, to us, which is our zone of genius and what we do, full time. So that's kind of what we do and our area of expertise.
Awesome. And how can people connect with you online?
Yeah, you can go to swiftpresssupport.com. That's the best place to connect with me and to learn more about my business. That's swiftpresssupport.com. And if you need to get in touch, just go to the contact link and send me a message, and I'd love to get back to you.
Awesome. And I'll link that too in the website at geekleader.com so people can click through on the show notes and get to SwiftPress Support. Again, Peter, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate having you on. It's been a great conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, John. I had such a great time being on the podcast today, and you asked some incredibly insightful questions, and I thank you so much for our time today.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to, click on their links, and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.